everybody, and welcome to another segment of the Just Bernard Show TV, live on G.I.C. TV, here on the GIC.org, the Global Illumination Council. We're very happy to have our good friend James Swagger is going to be joining me in just a few moments. And we're going to be discussing not only his book, The Newgrange Serious Mysteries, but also some of his experiences that he's been having over the last several weeks. And he's got some really wonderful new information for us. Let me tell you a little bit about James in case you don't know yet. But James Swagger was first introduced to topical science writing for Historical Mysteries magazine in Ireland. Sadly, it doesn't run anymore, but it did whet his appetite for researching ancient knowledge and lost science in a professional sense. Initially, it was for a favor due to his science and engineering background. Although his career in this field soon took him away to Europe, James trained as a systems analyst in the energy industry. He has taught master's degrees in engineering, a bachelor's degree in physics with astronomy, and a master's degree in science, research, and society. Initially, James Swagger sought out the megalithic monuments of Western Europe in his spare time, traveling around the UK, Ireland, and Denmark. His embrace of multidisciplinary approach to the research of megalithic sites and the larger view of passage grave cosmology produced his first book, Newgrange Serious Mysteries, linking passage grave cosmology with Dogon symbology. James was also a host his own podcast show, internet radio show called Capricorn Radio, which he explores historical mysteries. So without further ado, let me just let everybody know James is traveling, so if you're hearing any technical stuff going on in the background, just please bear with us. As well, I'm going to be sharing this interview with you, with James, a photograph of James, but he is here live, we promise. Anyway, so hello James, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you, Bernard. It's a pleasure to be back again.
We're very, very happy to have you back. Last time we had you on was for a 2-hour interview on the radio show, and you gave us just so much information, and we've been looking forward to having you come back on. So welcome to the Just Bernard Show TV version.
I'm sorry for the TV section, but as I said, you got me traveling. And had this planned out long in advance, but I had two very esteemed guests coming to my. And that was Mr. Spinacci and Gary Evans.
Yes.
So yeah, I've been doing some acoustic testing with them this week, Bernard, and I've been very blessed to have certainly Gary Evans with his experience of toning and acoustic testing of ancient sites. I really wanted to see what he thought of these ancient sites in a practical sense, a very holistic sense. It's an experiential way of looking at these monuments where I'm looking at them from Mr. Scientist, Mr. Engineer, and I can easily get wrapped up in the technicalities of all the engineering designs and the specs. And I also had the benefit of Santo Spinacci to bring his to buy me an acoustic guitar for the house, and then to secondly bring this acoustic guitar to the ancient monuments and play it for me inside. And I wanted to hear the effects of resonance, and for me it was first time round. I measured the astronomy of these monuments, all the cosmology, looked into all this stuff, and side by side I looked into the acoustics. So, when I did the acoustic testing, I wanted to measure the resonance of the chamber. Now, let me just say, all chambers, no matter what they are, if you make a box yourself at home, it's going to be a chamber or whatever it is, it's going to have its own resonance, So I wanted to first of all measure the resonance of these other chambers in Western Ireland. And to do that, I really wanted to make sure that they were in the male vocal range, like the other one. So it was kind of for fullness of research, and so my research would have been more scientific based, more data analysis than anything like. But what a wonderful last 10 days I've had. Traveling my beautiful homeland with two very esteemed guests to do this type of research. So it's been great, and a big thank you to Santo Spinacci and a big thank you to Gary Evans, should they be listening or catch this.
Absolutely, and we always thank Gary Evans for all of his wonderful work anyway. He's a very good friend to us here at the Global Illumination Council. James, can you tell our viewers a little bit about, some people may not know what Newgrange is and what passage graves are. I'm assuming you guys were you at, was that one of the sites you were at to do this testing?
Okay, so Newgrange is a passage grave. It's a megalithic chamber. It's a astronomical observatory. These are many names to explain one type of monument. Basically, it's called a grave because there was the remains of cremations found inside, so they call it a grave. And then it's got a long passageway into a mound, into a central room inside a mound, where the cremations took place, where the astronomical light comes in, the alignments, the artwork. It's all inside a central chamber, and of course the acoustics as well. So these are acoustic chambers. They're megalithic cairns. They're megalithic chambers, chambered mounds. There's so many different names to these. I think the name that wins the day is passage grave, because it's a passageway into a grave. But it really serves nothing to explain what these things are. I mean, they're laid out in an astronomical theme, very advanced, very sophisticated, beautifully engineered. I mean, the various styles of design, but usually the core concept is there, which is a mound of earth so many meters high, a ring of curbstones, a doorway or a passageway going into a central chamber, and inside the central chamber you'll probably find recesses to the left, to the right, and to the back, which would be a typical cruciform type chamber. But there's variations in that design too. There's sometimes they have 5 chambers, sometimes they have 7 chambers, sometimes they've, only 1 chamber to the offset to the left. And these are all found across Western Europe. Predominantly what I was doing again with Gary this week was going across certain ones in Ireland, because Gary's doing a tour in Ireland. He's doing some research here. He's going to develop a couple of more tours and spirituality and consciousness based. That's what Gary's looking into.
Great.
Much more experiential and holistic approach, and trying to reconnect with these sacred places. And it's something Gary's taught me to do this week. And I actually got such a buzz doing it. I can easily just go to these ancient monuments and switch off and try and look at the technical function of it. And I find I really tried to connect this week, and I really feel I did. And I mean, there were some other sites we went to as well that we connected with, and ones that I had not normally researched. I mean, there's other types of these tombs, these megalithic tombs as they're called. There's various types, Bernard. There's ones called court tombs, which is basically a courtyard, like an open courtyard before you get into the chamber. And then there's wedge tombs, because it looks like the shape of a wedge. Then there's the passage grave, like I explained, this winding passageway to get to the central chamber. And then, of course, the dolmen, and which is just like a capstone on 3 pedestals or 4 pedestals, depending. So I mean, we've hit quite a variety of monuments this week, and even some of them still have the pagan offerings on the nearest tree or whatever grows nearby. And with the ones that had the pagan offerings, Gary could feel the energy there. I was just looking at the guy soaking it up, and and it's like, we even went to the Hill of Tara as well, and man, that was fascinating, Bernard. It was so misty, and it was so imbued with this ambience of like a psychic imprint. This ancient peoples were there, and there was people there leaving offerings, and usually they maybe tie a bit of clothing onto the tree, Bernard, or tie some strings or coloured ribbons, or and there's still a pagan tradition there today. Like, these people that are respecting their ancestors, basically, Bernard. So there is that human function here. Let's not say that. Let's not look over that. But I think the thing for me is definitely the megalith acoustics research that's coming up in my sequel in the fall. All being well, I can wrap that up soon. That's the megalith acoustics mystery. And I was aware of both areas of research, Bernard. The Newgrange Serious Mystery was all about the astronomy of ancient sites in Ireland. I have looked outside Ireland. I've been to, I could be somewhere close to 400 of these things, and which they're in clusters, by the way, Bernard. So that may seem like a daunting number, but I mean, I've done all the ones in Ireland, Scotland, quite a chunk of them in Spain, quite a chunk of them in Portugal, a lot of them in Denmark, and the Drenthe region in Holland, all over a long period of time. So yeah, I mean, these chambers, there's a big mystery about these things, Bernard. There's an astronomy mystery, there's an acoustic.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. Tell us a little bit about the archaeoastronomy of it, and of course, go into the acoustic aspect of it.
you know, like I say, I don't. Originally, I disseminated these two concepts. You know, I treated each one separately, and each one for the reason of writing a book first and foremost. I mean, I didn't want to, you know, write one book with all this stuff in it and just confuse people. That was not the idea. I wanted to tackle each one separately. So they are, in effect, an AstroAcoustic culture. That is astronomy and acoustics embedded in their culture as a core belief system, you know, core tradition, a core philosophy that these guys had. So yeah, I mean, the cosmology that these guys had, they mapped out the sun and the moon and the stars. Now, when you look at the sun, we have the solstices, the spring and the autumn, and then we have the summer and winter solstices as well. And you know, the thing is that that's 4 points of the year. That's easy to grasp. But then they mapped out the halfway points again, which we call the cross quarter days. And these cross quarter days are Samhain, Imbolc, Beltane, or Beltane, and Lunasa, which are all Gaelic names for these other halfway points between solstices and halfway points between equinox. Right. So, you know, that may seem like a big revelation. Okay, so they mapped out an 8-pointed solar wheel, but then they did this all over the empire, and it looks like they also had further broke that down into 16 points again. So it's like they had a 16-month year of 22, 23, 24 days, depending on that megalithic month, if you want to call it that. Then you look at what they did. They had the moon function. The moon is quite complex in its cycles, a lot more complex than the sun. And again, they seem to have mapped out the synodic and the synodal lunar month, you know, this 19-year cycle. They're very, very sophisticated in how they map these things out, and a very intuitive, very practical way of doing this. And so yeah, and then when you get past that, it looks like they were mapping out constellations, how they traverse the skies. They were very aware of them. I showed Gary some very important rock art. Two of the most significant ones is Ardmore rock art in Donegal, which I have brought to the table a decipherment of Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, which nobody seems to have addressed before, and I can't find any reference to it. Please, I'm open to suggestions on it. And Gary was blown away by that. And also then there's the Dothe Pleiades, which has been long known to be at Dothe. So these guys could draw constellations if they wanted to, but they didn't necessarily draw them. They looked and studied them, but, you know, they didn't feel the need to draw them unless they were very, very important. And so, I mean, but I think personally they were aware of precession of the equinox, without a doubt. I mean, who wasn't in the ancient world concerned with precession of the equinox? You know, it seems to be everywhere on the planet. Like every ancient culture seems to be very aware of precession of the equinox, this great year. And I think the megalithic civilization is no different, Bernard. And, you know, so this is the cosmology that we're talking about. And when you get your head around that, you have to step back and go, oh, you know, these guys had a lot on the table, like, you know, figured out. And I think there was some of it still areas of research, Bernard. I don't think these guys were like, oh, we did all this, let's leave this as a legacy for mankind and let's incorporate it onto all these monuments. And, you know, I think they incorporated it into the monuments as a teaching platform, but there were still areas of research going on about precession. I don't think they knew the cause of precession. I don't think, you know, we're struggling with the idea today. I don't think they really kind of got it, or maybe they just knew it was there and they had it was a deeper cycle within another cycle, and, you know, they just wanted to figure it out and they were trying to explore it with the limited tools they had. And these tools was earth and stone. This is what gets most people. They did it against the odds of without technology, like, you know, against the odds, just using earth, mud, and stone, and their head, just their intellect. Would you believe, Bernard, I've been mulling this over again, and I'm constantly. Yeah, would you believe I found four magic mushrooms, Liberty Cap mushrooms, right at Cairn L. And, you know, they're within 10 feet of the monument and the spores are in the ground. And I'm like, you know, I looked at the psychedelics and the entheogens as a route to the understanding these ancient peoples. And then I've also looked at the acoustics. I think the astronomy is easy to get your head around. You look up at the stars, you take notes, you find things out. Yeah, you can map these over time. But, I mean, when you start bringing entheogens and acoustics into it, it gets very, very intense in terms of, you know, what were these guys up to? Because, I mean, acoustics is hard to get your head around. It means you're admitting to a very high advanced sophistication. And especially with entheogens, did these guys take entheogens and as a result explore their consciousness and find out a whole lot of other things? Or did these guys do entheogens alongside the acoustics? You know, you know, the thing is, there's two lines of research there with the entheogens and the acoustics, and each one's right. There's evidence for the acoustics, and there's evidence for the entheogens side by side, and both of them affect the consciousness. I think they did both, Spirit. I think they both did both side by side. I think they explored their consciousness. I don't think these were just a place to bury the dead. I actually think they were a place for fertility, for people, for cultural centers, for them to meet each other. I think they were born there, conceived there, and then ended up, that's where they left this planet. Like, you know, this is where they left this incarnation. These were like, you know, centers for, you know, to come in and out of this world, like, you know, and the solar deity, the solar pagan god in the sky, like, was this burning fire, this entity that they worshipped. And these were sun worshipping cults, you know, they were serpent worshipping cults, like, you know. So
if I may just jump in for a second here, James, because unfortunately I had my microphone off when I asked you that question, so I just want to repeat it to everybody who's watching. I'd asked James, was there a chance that the use of psychedelics and/or trance or psychic ability might have given people the information from an internal sense versus something they learned externally? And this is what he's just been explaining. Let me ask you, James. Now, the name of the book that you have out right now is The Newgrange Serious Mysteries, but implying that there's a connection with the Dogon. Now, what would be that connection with the Dogon tribe of Egypt?
yeah, let's talk about that. And I mean, there's something like, I can't remember now, I think maybe 9, 10 points of commonality with the Dogon, but some of the most important ones is the glyphs that the Dogon used, the spiral, what I call the sun wheel, and I showed these to Gary, and he's definitely seen remnants of Egyptian stuff as well. The Dogon's linked with Egypt, and the megalithic empire is linked with the Dogon through this symbology. The spiral representing the same thing, there's the sun wheels representing the same thing, and the sun wheel isn't just one location in Ireland, it's at several locations, Doubt and Loughcrew, it's also in Malta, and they appear and they use the exact same symbology using the same thing. There's the triple water wave as well. There's like a leaf with a vein on it. It looks like it's like an oval leaf, like with a vein running through it and lines on it, like the veins of a leaf. They Dogon use that as well. So it's strange that you have all these artistic symbols. Then you have Newgrange, meaning place of the white cow. And the Dogon are obsessed with cows and horned animals because they believe the Dogons, you know, their Nummo had these nodules on their head, these horned creatures with protruding nodules on their head. Then there's this horned seat. I have a good picture of Gary Evans on it. They call it the throne or the hag's chair, and it's at Loughcrew again, you know, and where all these glyphs are. And it looks like a horned seat. There's two horns out of a big giant. I mean, this stone's massive. Like, I mean, it's several tons. Like, and it's like a flat top. It's almost like the head of a bull or the head of a horned animal. And you have all this mythology wrapped up in it as well. And you know, all these horned creatures in the place of the white cow, as I said. Like, you know, it's murky, but it's there, you know, and it's not being addressed properly. But the most important thing is that the symbology, these artistic symbols representing the same thing. And of course, the Sirius alignment, again, the Dogon are synonymous with Sirius, like.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what the whole premise of the book is, the Newgrange Sirius mystery, that, you know, this Sirius was processing across the sky, and that these guys tried to map it and measure it. But there is alternatives to that theory out there. But I think if the Dogon knew so much about Sirius, they would definitely know if we processed around it or not. So, you know, I think these guys are experts in Sirius more than any other ancient culture. And it just so happens we have links to it there at Newgrange, as well as the Dogon sun wheel, these special sun wheels. They're solar wheels, some people call them.
Absolutely. Now, James, you're making a lot of mention about these ancient cultures having this reverence for horned beings. I can't help but jump into the whole satanic panic where people are like, oh, it's the devil, it's the devil. Is it fair to say that these cultures were revering these creatures and or animals because they represented food, sustenance, the hunt? Basically, it gave them. It was a symbol of life to them. Is that pretty much what you're getting from your research? That this was something that either they ate or they worshipped because it gave nourishment? What's your take on all the horned animals that they seem to revere?
Sure. No, I actually do think it was a physical representation of what these beings were. Like, I mean, they talk about their people, the Nummo, having nodules, two like bumps. They're like almost like you've been hit on the head and you get like a golf ball bump on your head. But that's what these guys are supposed to have, like, one to the left and to the right of their head. And also they had nodules. They described these nodules on their elbows and on their skin, like, and so, they give us details of what these guys had. There's actually a figurine from the Babylonian culture showing this as well. And there's also, if you remember Chariots of the Gods, Eric von Daniken, he's in the original 1970 footage. He goes to a place in North Africa where the Dogon migrated across, and there's a picture of a horned entity. It's on one of the cave arts drawn in the desert, and it's like it's got these two nodules on the head, like, so perhaps they were a race of these Nomo had nodules on the head, and they're actually just worshipping horned animals in respect to their teachers, like, maybe it's as simple as just a physical representation. That's what I kind of take from it anyway. I take the literal translation of these guys left us, like, and so I don't read into it much more than that. I don't go down the ET route too much, which is what the Dogon are known for. Not that I want to dissuade it in any way. I mean, I'm open to it, Bernard. I'm totally open to it.
Oh yeah.
I've done some ufology shows myself, and it's not a big subject I do, but it's not taboo to me in any way. I'm open to it, like, but I just think it's fascinating. If you even read the Celtic tales, Bernard. Because the Celts let's just say that the Celts inherited these megalithic chambers, these megalithic monuments. There was an overlap when the megalithic monuments died out. The building died out. There was a 500-year overlap with the Celts taking them over, and they talked about these guys, the Fomorians, the Fir Bolg, the Tuatha De Danann, these tribes, like, and they were having aerial battles. It's strange, like, one of those science fiction tales, like, they talked about force fields. This is in Ireland, like, they talk about these old Celtic tales where there was an aerial battle and there was like a force field that they were trying to breach and all, like, it's crazy, like, but these guys also talked about these the megalithic builders coming from the Western Seas. So, like, we have to look at some of the mythology, and when you look at some of the mythology in context, some of it makes sense, like, some of it fits in nicely with some of the Dogon stuff. But I think the Dogon, just on the Dogon alone, I mean, I've had Shannon Dory on the show. I hope to get her back soon. She's a fascinating researcher, as is Laird Scranton, two of my favourite Dogon, and they both references from my book. And the thing is, they do a wealth of research, and the Dogon, I think, was a source religion. When you take what both of these guys have done, they both go in slightly different directions, and both of them point to a high technology, and if that high technology is ET or not ET, it's certainly a high technology. And these guys were a source religion. These guys seeded what I believe seeded the world. There's so many links with the Dogon and Babylonian, the Dogon and Egyptian, and the Dogon and megalithic empire. So that's why I think that of them as a source religion. And I know Laird Scranton's working on another angle of another culture as well. So.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating, Bert. It's such a fascinating world we live in now, and all these.
And it just keeps getting even more fascinating as we begin to open at these quote-unquote rabbit holes. It's like, oh, well, if that is connected with that, then there's got to be something there.
Exactly, Bert. And I think that 3000 BC to 5000 BC was what it's made out to be. I think this was a very exciting time in our planet. There was a lot of mutual contact between all these cultures. Was there a source culture like the Dogon going around seeding or reseeding or trying to kickstart civilization again? It so happens that 3000 BC, you have the Chinese popping up, you have the Egyptians popping up, you have the India continent, all these cultures popping up. You have the megalithic civilization popping up, the Olmecs in Central America. It's insane that this one window, this one period of time that all this is going on. And then pyramid building, and then you have this astronomy based stargazing, this acoustics embedded in all these cultures. And it's like, You know, it's insane that this was the type of knowledge that these guys had. And even when you get into Shannon Doherty's work, I mean, she talks about these guys and the acoustics that these guys had. These guys were they could communicate by sonar, like, you know, they were like the way dolphins do. Like, they were supposed to be semi-aquatic fish gods, like, as Robert Temple might talk about them, but they were able to communicate in sound in different ways and stuff that we can't even comprehend. Like, did a show live at Newgrange the other night. I'm gonna head off to Cork in the morning, so I've got a very long drive, another 5 hours to go. Yeah, but I have a little bit of business to do down there. And then my reign of terror on the megalithic research is gone, so I'm going to go home for a couple of weeks and chill out. But yeah, I'm having a great time. I just give my website again. It's jamesswagger.com.
Yes.
The first book is the Newgrange Serious Mystery. You can catch that there. And stay tuned for the Megalith Acoustics Mystery. That's coming out, hopefully, I say the fall, around October. I hope to be at the end of October at the latest, but I hope to be before that.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I look very much forward to your next book coming out, and we can talk even more about it. All the best to you. All the best to Gary and everybody. I'm so sorry we weren't able to do the show a little earlier. We could have Gary on as well.
You've only missed them by a few hours, Bernard.
Unbelievable. It's always the way. But anyway, so thank you so much, James Swagger, for joining us again. Everybody, you can look up more information with James at jamesswagger.com. As well, don't forget to check out his book, Newgrange Serious Mysteries. You can find it on Amazon. I'm sure you can find it on his website. And again, just thank you so much for joining us here on the Global Illumination Council on GIC TV. And thanks again, James. And have a wonderful, safe journey wherever you're headed.
Bernard, I appreciate the time. That was brilliant. Thank you.
All righty. Take care now. Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a wonderful night, and we will see you here again on GIC TV in the next couple of weeks. We're going to be doing a 5th anniversary special as well. We have the pledge driver. We're going to be recording the new series by Roxy Lopez and myself called Contradiction. We'll be here in October, but we do about 2 of these every month, and we look forward to having you come back and join us. Have a great weekend, everyone. We love you very much. Bye-bye.